So there are going to be spoilers for Sunrise on the Reaping here, but my question is, do you think that Katniss and Peeta were treated better than Haymitch and Lucy Gray had been treated when they'd been tributes? And do you wonder why? And I have a bonus question for you at the end. So I'm starting with the footnote here because after I recorded this video, I found an online forum where other people were asking the same question. And the consensus there seemed to be that a lot of fans thought that President Snow treated the tributes better by the time Katniss and Peeta came along because most, if not all, of the people who had lived in the districts, who had lived through the dark days, were dead. And President Snow just felt like a rebellion wasn't going to happen. Like the chances of it happening were going to be slim. So he was able to treat the tributes better. But, I mean, I could be wrong, but I just got the distinct impression that Snow sincerely and truly hated the people in the districts with every fiber of his being. So I don't think he was treating the tributes in previous Hunger Games. I don't think he was treating them brutally because he was afraid of a rebellion so much as he just hated the tributes. And this was his way to hurt them. Did he want to use the Hunger Games to quash any rebellions? Absolutely. I just don't think that that was his only motivation. I don't think that he was somebody who would think like, oh, okay, so the chances of a rebellion now are pretty slim. I guess I'll treat the tributes better. I think he would have continued to treat them as heinously and maliciously as he possibly could until his last breath. I could be wrong. I'm not trying to retcon anything, but that was just my opinion. So moving forward, here are my thoughts, because I think something else happened to cause Snow to treat the tributes better. At some point between Haymitch's games and Katniss's games, there was some kind of a shift. And here is my theory. So when I finished reading Sunrise on the Reaping, I realized that Haymitch's games were more brutal than Lucy Gray's had been in some ways. I mean, sure, yeah, I mean, he and his fellow tributes had gotten more food to eat than Lucy Gray and her tributes had, and they weren't exposed to rodents and rabies like Lucy Gray and her tributes were, but, I mean, he and the other tributes, I mean, they were sprayed with insecticide. And the information that he and the other District 12 tributes shared with Mags and Wyrus were weaponized against them because the Capitol had bugged their rooms. But, I mean, Katniss and Peeta were treated so much better than Haymitch and Lucy Gray had been. They were given luxurious showers, all the food they wanted, rich desserts and furniture, soft furniture, nice clothes. Haymitch and his fellow tributes had been well fed, and they also had comfortable accommodations. And Haymitch was even given a birthday cake, which he rejected for obvious reasons. But in the process of being taken from their districts to the arena, Katniss and Peeta were undeniably treated better than Haymitch and Lucy Gray had been, even though Katniss and Peeta had also been treated like and seen as barbarians by the Capitol. I mean, they weren't sprayed with insecticide, and they weren't exposed to rabies. I mean, they already knew that their surroundings were likely bugged, so they were careful with what they said in places where the Capitol could be listening. But why were Katniss and Peeta treated better? I think Snow and/or the Capitol gets a portion of the gambling proceeds generated in the Capitol by the Hunger Games, as well as money from the forced prostitution of victors, and I think somehow Haymitch's games may have been a tipping point leading to an economic boom. So it had been a quarter quell, and there had been twice as many tributes. The footage was altered in that the Capitol residents saw alterations and edits to Haymitch's games, and the Capitol makes their changes wisely. That could also lead to an economic boom, and Plutarch is in Sunrise on the Reaping, and he might have convinced Snow to allow a test run for 1 year's games, sometime after Haymitch's games, but before Katniss and Peeta's, to see what effect treating the tributes more humanely would have on the games, and it may have led to better money for the Capitol. So treating the tributes with a little more decency stuck. Perhaps treating the tributes better made them more eager for the victor's village. They would likely have more energy and better performances when they weren't doused in poison or exposed to rabies beforehand. Maybe they were more convinced that the Capitol was a civilized society when the Capitol lessened their abuse before the games. Though the reapings, the entire Hunger Games process is abuse and a major violation of obvious basic human rights. If the tributes were treated well from the time of the reaping until the game started, those tributes would be nicer to the Capitol residents, be more charming in interviews on TV, which would make the Capitol residents want to be more involved, including financially, making the Hunger Games more popular and profitable. If an attractive tribute wins, well, we know from Finnick what happens to them, and that too lines Snow's pockets. Or perhaps Snow saw the district as a little less likely to rebel if they weren't treated so harshly, before being put in an arena to fight to the death. There's a possibility that the Hunger Games evolved from being a tool to keep the districts oppressed, which is what we saw in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, to also becoming a tool for adding to the Capitol's economic prosperity, especially after Haymitch's games. So now, your bonus question, why weren't Haymitch's games that Katniss and Peeta watched edited so that they didn't see how Haymitch had used the force field to help kill the final tribute and win the games? We're told in the original Hunger Games trilogy that Haymitch's loved ones had been killed because his stunt with the force field had made the Capitol look stupid. But if so, then why wasn't that edited out before Katniss and Peeta watched Haymitch's games? Or was Haymitch really punished because he had tried breaking the arena? Or was this a plot hole? Because watching how Haymitch used the force field was part of what gave Katniss her idea to break the arena. And it certainly seems foolish for the Capitol to allow that weakness to remain visible to future tributes. Let me know your thoughts down below, and what do you all think? Leave comments. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe so it can reach more Hunger Games fans. Keep weaving the threads of your stories.